Hello, once again, welcome to another episode of THP Tutorials. In today's video, we'll be continuing with our series on Management Information System. This is the 8th chapter and it's about securing information systems, right? So let's take a look at our learning objectives. So the first thing we'll do is we'll explain why information systems need security, right? We'll explain why that is to say that we're going to look at why information systems are vulnerable to distraction, error, and abuse. We'll also take a look at the business value of security and control, right? So the first thing we'll look at is why information systems are vulnerable, right? Or even how they are vulnerable. And then we'll look at the importance of making your information system secure and controlled, right? That's the security and control value of to a business. From there, we'll describe the components of an organizational framework for security and control. And then we'll describe the tools and technologies used for safeguarding information resources. Let's begin. So to begin, we'll look at what security and control, the definitions, right? We are talking about the title is securing information systems. So what security? Security refers to policies, procedures, and technical measures used to prevent unauthorized access, alteration, theft, or physical damage to information systems. So the key words here would be prevent unauthorized access. Alright, so prevent unauthorized access. For controls, it will be the methods, policies, and organizational procedures that ensure safety of organization's assets, accuracy and reliability of its accounting records, and operational adherence to management standards. Right, so the key words for control would be ensure the safety of the organization's assets. So control is about ensuring safety. Security has to do with preventing unauthorized access. Very well. Now we begin with the first objective, right? Why and even how information systems are vulnerable, right? Now this is a lot, so we'll be touching on key issues and won't focus much on other stuff, right? So where are systems vulnerable? There's the accessibility of networks, right? One reason why systems are vulnerable is because they are easily accessible, right? So the nature of the network's accessibility is what makes it vulnerable. Now, hardware problems, that's like breakdowns, configuration errors, damage from improper use or crime. Then there could be another reason is the software problems, right? Programming errors, installation errors, unauthorization. Then there could be disasters, right? Bad things can happen and it could cause damage or problems to your systems. And the use of network or computers outside of the firm's control, right? When you are using outside machines to access the organization system, it compromises the system, right? And it makes it vulnerable. Then there's loss and theft of portable devices, right? Like mobile phones and laptops. Very well. So in this setup, we have the contemporary security challenges and vulnerabilities. So this is your corporate system over here, right? The corporate system. You have corporate servers, communication lines, and then client user. This is like a typical setup in a corporate institution, and this is the items listed under each of the diagrams are the challenges involved at that stage. So for the clients, is what unauthorized access and errors. When it comes to the communications lines, there's tapping, there's sniffing, there's message alteration, theft and fraud, and there's radiation, right? Corporate servers, web hacking, viruses and viruses and worms, theft and fraud, vandalism, then denial or service attacks. So we look at what all these things are down the line. And there's what theft of hardware, copying data, alteration of data, hardware failure, and software failure, right? So these are basically a summarized version of the challenges and vulnerabilities that contemporary security, is facing, right? The security of information systems. Very well. Right now, a point like this might also confuse you, right? Internet vulnerabilities. Remember that systems and internet, they are connected, right? But the information systems are not the same as internet. So internet also has its own vulnerabilities and is listed here, right? So it says that the internet is open to anyone. Anyone has access, just like the systems. Okay, the system is not it's not anyone who has access, but accessibility is a issue of vulnerability. So internet vulnerability, right? The network is open to anyone. The size of the internet means abuse can have wide impact, right? Because everything goes viral nowadays. So the use of fixed internet addresses with cable or DLS, that's digital subscriber line, modems. If you don't know what these words are, you can just check out the chapter on telecommunications. Right. So this the fixed internet address with cable and the DLS modems. They create fixed targets for hackers, right? Now you have the unencrypted VoIP, that's the voice over internet protocol. Now email, peer-to-peer, and what? Instant messaging. These are the vulnerabilities that come with that one. Interception, attachments with malicious software, transmitting trade secrets, right? So those are the vulnerabilities under that. Right, now I have wireless security challenges. So that's speaking to radio frequency bands, which are easy to scan. Then there's the SSIDs, that's the service set identifiers. So this have to do it. Now this SSIDs identify access points. They broadcast multiple times and can be identified by sniffer programs. Right, we'll look at what sniffer is very soon. Right, and then there's wall driving, which has been taught eavesdroppers will drive by buildings and try to detect this SSID cards, and will try to gain access to the network and resources using the SSID cards. Right, now once access point is breached, intruder can use the operating system to access network drives and files. So they do the wall driving and they try to manipulate or hack into the SSID, and they use that to misbehave basically, right? So that makes the wireless connections vulnerable, right? So moving on, this is an example, right? Many Wi-Fi security challenges, right? Wireless, because Wi-Fi is also wireless. Many Wi-Fi networks can be penetrated easily by intruders using sniffer programs to obtain an address to access the resources of a network without authorization. That's what's going on here. This is the intruder. They have used the sniffer program, right? And they have access to the authentication request, the challenge, the response, the success. Right? Good. Now, all we are coming to do now, I'll focus on some. I won't focus on some. But that is just to say that we have identified why systems are vulnerable. We looked at why internet is also vulnerable. Now we just talk about the wireless connection, why that's vulnerable, right? Now the things that I come to talk about now are not going to answer the question why, but I want to answer how, right? So everybody having access to a network, how is that the reason why the network is vulnerable, right? So I want to explain why and how from here on down. Exactly. So focus on some items more and others not so much. Let's proceed, right? So the first thing we have is malware, right? Malware, that's malicious software. Very well. Now it can be broken down into viruses, right? Worms. So what's a virus? A virus is a rogue software program that attaches itself to other software programs or data files in order to be executed. Right? That's just what a virus is. You've always been hearing computer virus, right? Well, malware is not the same as virus. There are many types of malware. So virus falls under malware. Right? And that one is just a rogue software program, right? And it attaches itself to other software programs or data files in order to be executed. What are worms? Worms, they are independent programs, right? So with worms, they don't need to attach themselves to anything. They are independent. They can survive on their own, right? That's why viruses are called viruses. They have to attach themselves to something. Viruses by themselves are harmless. Viruses by themselves are harmless. They can't do anything unless they attach themselves to people, and then that's where they start being to programs. But in real life, that's how viruses work. That's why the viruses are called virus. Right. So the worms, with those ones, they are independent programs, and they copy themselves from one computer to another over a network. Right. So they don't need your permission. That's why it's important to have antivirus. Right. Now worms and viruses are spread by downloads, drive-by downloads, emails, instant messaging attachments, downloads on websites, and social networks. So the malware, we are continuing that, right? Smartphones as vulnerable as computers. So this is just making you see there are a lot of unnecessary things here. Like this point shouldn't be a point. It's just additional information saying that smartphones are just as vulnerable to malware as computers are. Right? Right. So let's just focus on that. Trojan horses, right? Now that's a malware. Now it's a software that appears benign, harmless, but that's something other than expected, right? Now you have the SQL or the SQL injection attacks. That has to do with hackers. We learned this in database, so we know what the SQL is, right? The structured query language. And that's when hackers submit data to web forms that exploit sites, unprotected software, and sends rogue SQL query to database, right? Now ransomware. How that works is simply that hackers will infect your computer with a virus, and then they'll demand a ransom to fix it for you. The spyware. With those ones, they're not coming to spoil your computer or anything or destroy anything. They just come to monitor everything I do, your information, they'll steal your data and send it to someone else. The person who put the spyware over there. So it's used as an inside the spyware, it's used to spy on people. Right? You see a point like this, hackers and computer crime. It's answering the question, how are the things that we listed earlier going to make systems vulnerable? How can they lead to systems abuse on systems or systems abuse? Right? So we have hackers and we also have crackers. The activities they engage in include system intrusion, system damage, cyber vandalism, right? That's the intentional disruption, defacement, destruction of website or corporate information system. So this is just making that point. Oh, hackers and computer crime. It's more like additional information. Very well. Right now, this is what I'm talking about. This is something that we actually need to know. You see, spoofing and sniffer. Sniffer occurred popped up earlier, right? So what's spoofing? With that one, you are misrepresenting yourself by using fake email addresses. or you're acting like you're somebody else, right? You can when you redirect web link to address different from the internet one, with the site masquerading as internet destination. So it's the same thing, right? Someone tries to search for something and then you redirect them to another site that looks like what they are looking for, but it's not that. So that's what spoofing is. Simply being an imposter on the internet or posing as something that you're not. That's what spoofing is basically. Now what's sniffer? Sniffers do what? Eavesdropping program that monitors information traveling over a network. So that's why you said that the sniffer program is what hackers can use to what steal your get access to your wireless connection, your Wi-Fi. So that's what that's what the sniffer program is. So sniffing is what? Eavesdropping on other people's information that is being transmitted over a network. We also came across this in the diagram of the corporate systems, in the vulnerabilities and challenges. Denial of service attacks, right? You see how usually we try to take our test on the virtual sites, and then what happens? Everyone is trying to log on, so the site starts to crash. That's what the denial of service attack is, but this one is intentional. So they flood a server with many requests, right? False requests, of course, and due to that, the server will crash because it's too much, and the requests are too much to process. So the distributed denial of service attacks, the DDoS, is the same as the denial of service attacks, but with that one, we are using numerous computers to launch the DOS, the denial of service attacks. Right. So under the DDoS, there's botnets, right? And that's a network of zombie PCs infiltrated by bot malware. Bot is like robot or robotic, not robot in the traditional. Technology has come a long way. So with the botnets, they deliver 90% of the world spam, 8% of the world malware. Then there's the ground botnet, which controlled between 560K to 840K computers. See, now this is just more information on vulnerability of systems, computer crime. Right, so we are committing crimes with a computer. That's all this is saying. Identity theft. You've heard this many times. When you steal other people's identities, their snitch cards, their driver's license, their credit cards, and you ask like if you are them. Right? What's phishing? Phishing, let's touch on phishing more. Phishing has to do with setting up fake websites or sending email messages that look like legitimate businesses to ask users for confidential personal data, right? So what's phishing about? You need someone's personal data. They won't give it to you. So you masquerade as a legitimate business and try to act like you have value to offer them, and then what happens? You end up getting everything that you want from them. But you lie and you pose as a legitimate business. And you do that by setting up fake websites or use email messages, right? So you use fake email messages. Well, now there's the evil twins, and that says it was wireless networks that prevents to offer trustworthy Wi-Fi connections to the internet, right? So that's what the evil twins is all about. Wireless networks that pretend to offer trustworthy Wi-Fi connections to the internet. Spamming, it has to do it, redirecting users to a bogus web page, even when the individual types correct web page address into his or her browser, right? So you probably experience this. You probably experience this all the time you're on the internet, right? You type in the URL where you're going, the web page that you're going, and then you are just redirected. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're typing the right address. So that's what farm means, right? So when it happens, someone is farming you or you're being farmed. Well, then there's click fraud. That occurs when individuals or computer programs fraudulently clicks on online ad without any intention of learning more about the advertiser or making a purchase. Yeah, so apparently that's click fraud when you fraudulently click on online ads without the intention of learning more about the advertiser or even making a purchase. Right. So don't do that. Then there's cyber terrorism and cyber warfare. So warfare on the internet and terrorism on the internet. That's all that means. And there's internal threats, employees. Security threats often originate inside an organization. Inside knowledge, stopping security procedures. The user, when the users lack knowledge, right? So you're saying that another thing that makes systems vulnerable is what? Internal threats. That are the employees. So that they're indisciplined or not enough knowledge, or they're looking to make quick money. And yeah, this talks about social engineering, tricking employees into revealing their passwords by pretending to be legitimate members of the company in need of information. So that's what social engineering entails apparently. Tricking employees into revealing their passwords by pretending to be legitimate members of the company in need of information. So this is like similar to what happens with the WhatsApp calls. You are called, oh, I'm in this group, that group. You know, if you have experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. So more additional information. We have commercial software contains flaws that create security vulnerabilities. Okay. This is highlighted. It says what? Software vulnerability, right? Software vulnerability. So the first one we looked at was the system, internet, wireless. This is all about software vulnerability. Why is software vulnerable? So you have commercial software contains flaws that create security vulnerabilities. So that's talking about commercial software, right? There could be hidden bugs, right? Defects in the program code. Now, zero defects cannot be achieved because complete testing is not possible with large programs. Flaws can open networks to intruders. What's a patch? Now, a patch is a small piece of software that repairs flaws. The exploits of these patches often create faster. Okay, exploits often created faster than patches can be released and implemented. Alright. So all you have here is that a patch is a small piece of software that is used to repair flaws in a program. Now here it says that exploits, I'm guessing other programs that are often created faster than patches can be released and implemented. So I think those exploits are alternative solutions. Very good. So what I just spoke about, that has to do with the vulnerability and abuse of systems. Why systems are vulnerable. So we are moving on to the next. This what? Business value of security and control. So as a business, why should you have security and control, right? Why should you prevent unauthorized access? And why should you ensure the safety of your records? So failed computer systems can lead to significant or total loss of business function. Firms now are more vulnerable than ever. Confidential personal and financial data, trade secrets, new products, strategies, right? So these are the reasons why they are vulnerable. right? Because now they have to keep all these things. Now these things are the secrets to your success. That is what brings money to your organization. If you don't secure it and control its safety, you are going to be in trouble, right? Because a security breach may cut into a firm's market value almost immediately. Inadequate security and controls also bring forth issues of liability. Can't be trusted. So that's why it's a business. You need to, have your things under control. Yeah, so keep your organization in order. Right? In the 21st century, there is always a law governing something somewhere. So when it comes to what the legal and regulatory requirements for electronic records management and privacy protection, these are the laws that protect that. HIPAA or HIPAA, IHPA, choose one. Then there's the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. Then there's the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. The HIPAA report, medical security and privacy results and privacy rules and procedures. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. That's what it requires financial institutions to ensure the security and confidentiality of customer data. Then the last one, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act imposes responsibility on companies and their management to safeguard the accuracy and integrity of financial information that is used internally and released externally. Right? So they are safeguarding the accuracy and integrity of financial information. Electronic evidence. Right, so these are just the laws that are governing the use of what? They govern electronic records management and privacy protection. So that's like legal stuff, right? Now, this electronic evidence and the computer forensics is more reasons for you to have security and control, right? So this is also valuable to the organization. So is this, right? So what's electronic evidence? So when you have security and control and everything is on point, you always have evidence when a crime takes place in your system. You can always trace it and detect it quickly. Now, in the event of such things happening, you always have proof, right? So that's the electronic evidence, right? Now, proper control of data can save time and money when responding to legal discovery requests, right? So you can always be prepared for those lawsuits that will arise. So you have electronic evidence. So as a business, it's very valuable. Computer forensics. What's this about? You know what forensics is, right? So scientific collection, examination, authentication, preservation, and analysis of data from computer storage media for the use as evidence in court of law. It includes recovery of ambient and hidden data. Right now, computer forensics. When you say forensics, you always say forensics thing. That's with investigation, right? If you fought those crime series before, you see when somebody dies and they call the police and CSI team comes, they start asking questions. They take pictures. You see them holding cutting board and they're always taking swabs of things. That's what forensics is. That's crime scene forensics. But in the field of IT, when you say computer forensics, when there's an issue, the system has been hacked, something, whatever. If your security is top notch and your control is also top notch, you won't have problems with computer forensics. You even make the forensics easier to go and to take place, and that will also work in your favor When you are the one who has been stolen from. Right, so that's the business value of security and control. Now moving on, right, the organizational frameworks for security and control. We've looked at why systems are vulnerable, the importance of having security and control in your organization. Now looking at how you would go about it if you were to have a framework in your organization for security and control. So the first thing is what? Information systems control. This is the main point over here. Right. Now this information systems control is looking at two. The manual and automated controls, that's the first, and the general and application controls. In this slide, you are going to break down these two. And you look at what general controls are and what application controls are. So general controls. Yeah, what are they? Now they govern design, security, and use of computer programs and the security of data files in general throughout the organization's IT infrastructure. So let me explain it this way. General controls, they are governing two things. That's computer programs and what? Security of data files. That's what they are governing. Computer programs and the security of data files in the whole organization's IT infrastructure. They apply to all computerized applications. And the general controls are a combination of hardware, software, and manual procedures to create overall control environment, right? So the general controls also what? Creates an overall control environment. The general controls create an overall It creates an overall control environment by combining hardware, software, and manual procedures. That's what the general controls do. We look at what? Types of general controls. Software controls, hardware controls, computer operations controls, data security controls, implementation controls, and administrative controls. These are the types of controls. So these controls that are used to what? Combine hardware, software, and manual procedures. And why do they do that? They do that so that they can create an overall control environment. Very good. General controls are doing what? They govern computer programs and security of data files in the whole IT infrastructure. How do they govern them? They govern the design, the security, or what do they govern? How do they govern them? So they govern the design, security, and the use of computer programs and the security of data files. So now I want to look at what? The application aspect of these controls under the information system controls. So the application controls, they are specific controls unique to each computerized application, such as payroll or other processing. Under the general controls, they are governing what? Computer programs and the security of data files. Now let's focus on the computer program aspect, right? Now there are various programs in the computer in the organization, right? So they have their payroll program, they have their program for processing orders, right? Now the general controls say are for the whole organization, right? So they have everything that they bring overall control. But the application controls are the controls of those computer programs. So they are unique to each computer program in the organization. So each computer program has its own special control. That's why you have what? Each computerized application. If you look at the general controls, what did they say over there? It said what? They apply to all computerized applications. So over here. So general for the whole, all the computer programs, all the computerized applications, whatever you want to call them, all of them. That's what the general controls do. But the application controls, they are the controls, or they are in control of what? Computerized applications or computer programs. in the organization. So payroll system has its own controls. Order processing system has its own controls. Accounting, human resources, all their programs or their computerized applications that they use all have their own application controls. Right. Now these application controls include both automated and manual procedures, and they ensure that only authorized data are completely and accurately processed by that application. They include what? They include input controls, processing controls, and output controls. Do you remember what input, processing, and output is? I hope you do. Don't mind me. But check this, right? That's the, I won't say it. So check the previous shortest. Yeah, the one on database, I think. Yeah, should be there. Right. So all what we just spoke about is what? That's information systems control. This first point. All this comes under that. So now I'm moving to the second one. Risk assessment. That's to do with what? Determines the level of risk to the firm if specific activity or process is not properly controlled. So the risk assessment component inside a framework for security and control for an organization, that's what it determines the level of risk to the firm. So it will look at an activity or process that is not being properly controlled, and it will assess it and determine how risky it is for the organization, right? So types of threat, probability of occurrence during the year, potential losses, value of threat, expected annual loss. And so this is a table, right? So the expected annual loss is this, right? They are assessing activities, maybe power failure, embezzlement, the use error. So the risk assessment does that. It's looking at everything. Okay, this one is 30%. How much money can we lose from this? 5k to 200k. Okay. What's the expected annual loss? Right. So they have to put their things in order. Exactly. From risk assessments, we go away. Security policy, where that's where you have ranks, information system. Security policy ranks information risk, identifies acceptable security goals, and identifies mechanisms for achieving these goals. So that's what the security policy does. It ranks the information risk. Okay, so what the policy is doing now? Okay, to sit down, it's a policy. It's trying to assess everything. So it's doing three things. All the risks about information, it will rank them. Who is the most important? Level, first, second, third. Right? Then to identify acceptable security goals, right? So maybe you have your risk. So these are the things that you are risking. So these are our goals. You have to prevent this and this from happening, that and that from happening. So what the security policy does is that after identifying the information risk, it will also identify acceptable security goals, right? And what happens after that? It will identify ways to achieve those acceptable security goals. It does three things. One, what? Ranks information risk, to identify acceptable security goals, and what? To identify the mechanisms or the ways to achieve those acceptable security goals. Now, the security policy also drives other policies. You have the acceptable use policies, the AUP, and that's what it defines acceptable uses of the firm's information resources and computing equipment. So the AUP will define how you use the firm's information resources and equipment, what is acceptable and what is not. Now you have authorization policies, which will have to determine the different levels of the user access to information assets. So the authorization policies determine different levels of user access. So everybody has their level, right? It's like as a student, when you open your student portal, you already see information concerning you, right? But when the student opens his portal, what where he or she opens his portal, what they'll be seeing is not what you'll be seeing. Right? They'll be seeing more information, many students, department, exactly. So that's what I'm talking about here. So another component is identity management. So with that one, has to do with what? Business processes and tools to identify valid users of system and control access. So with the identity management, that involves the business processes and the tools that we use to identify valid users of the system and the control access. Right? We have identity management systems. They capture the rules for access for different levels of users. So the point is what? Identity management. So security profiles for a personal system. So I have security profile one. User, department flag, division one, employee codes with this profile, data field restrictions, type of access. So these are restrictions of this individual, right? At the first level, at division one, they're correct. They're only allowed to see medical history data, salary, and then pensionable earnings, right? When you look at the division one person, this is the personnel manager. So the personnel data, the personnel manager has access to. Data field restrictions, right? Now they have access to all employee data for division one only, right? So the personnel manager for division one has what? All access to employee data. This is just an employee over there, right? So this employee cannot see the manager's information, but the manager can see everybody's information. So that's what the data management and the identity management is about. We have this disaster recovery planning, right? Those are the devices or plans for restoration of disrupted services. There's a business continuity plan, and it focuses on restoring the business operations after disaster. So these are just, the disaster recovery. When our services are destroyed, how can we restore them? When your continuity is what? Restoring the operations of the business after a disaster occurs, right? Now, this disaster recovery planning and the business continuity planning involves both of them need to identify the firm's most critical systems, right? Now, the business impact analysis to determine, so they both perform they perform the impact analysis on the business, right, to determine the impact of an outage. So they assess various disasters and how they can affect the company. Now management must determine which systems must be restored first in the case of a disaster. And the last one is what? Information systems audit. That simply has to do with checking your organization, right? You are checking it. You audit your information systems, right? And it has to do with examining the firm's overall security environment, right? As well as controls governing individual information systems. There's the reviews technologies. So the audit has to do with reviewing technologies, right? Procedures, documentation, and training personnel. And it may even simulate disaster to test response of technology. List and ranks all control weaknesses and estimate probability of their occurrence. And then assess financial and organizational impact of each threat. So that's what the audit is about. So this is a chart is a sample page from a list of control weaknesses that an auditor might find in a loan system in a local commercial bank. This form helps auditors to record and evaluate control weaknesses and show the results of discussing those weaknesses with management, as well as any corrective actions taken by management. This is an example. So we're moving on to the last objective, which is about what? It's about the tools and technologies for safeguarding information resources. So the first is identity management software. Right here, we just brushed. We're speaking about this, right? So automate keeping track. So keeping track of who has access to what in the organization, on the systems. That's what this software does. It automates that process, right? And it authenticates users and protects identities, and it controls access. You have authentication using passwords, so two-step verification, biometric authentication, smart cards, tokens. Right? This is how you can safeguard the information resources. And the firewall, what's a firewall? It's a combination of hardware and software that prevents unauthorized users from accessing private networks. And then the technologies include static packet filtering, stateful inspection, network address translation, and then application proxy filtering. Right? So that's what something like a firewall does. Now, it's a corporate firewall. So firewall is the outer wall, internet, the web server is the inner wall, and the corporate system and database, policy rules, make up, right? So the firewall is placed between the firm's private network and the public internet or another distrusted network to protect against unauthorized traffic, right? Very well. So that's what a firewall is, right? Combination of hardware and software that prevents unauthorized users from accessing private networks. You have the intrusion detection systems, right? Antivirus and anti-spy software. So just English, like the intrusion detection systems. So they detect when your systems are intruded. Antivirus and anti-spyware is self-explanatory, right? Now, unified threat management (UTM) systems. Right, so that is a type of, or it's a technology or tool that can protect your system. So the unified threat management. Securing wireless networks. Right. So this point another, we have what? Web security can provide some security by assigning unique name to the network's SSID and not broadcasting the SSID, using it with VPN technology, right? So this one is not really talking about. So this securing wireless networks is broad in a sense, right? It's encompassing everything, and it's speaking about how you can use web security to provide your security and to ensure your security. So the web security will assign unique name to your network's SSID, right? Before we talk about what that is. And you can also use VPN. And there's a Wi-Fi Alliance finalized WPA2 specification, replacing the web with stronger standards. So you have the WEP and then the WPA2, right? I think that should work too, but WPA2. So the WPA2 is stronger than the web, and what it does is that it continually changes keys. So it makes it hard to access the network, access the network. The encrypted authentication system with central server. So these two things are what WPA2 is bringing to the system and to the table. And there's encryption. What's encryption? That's really transforming text or data into ciphertext that cannot be read by unintended recipients. So that's how your WhatsApp works, or Telegram, right? Other people cannot see the message that are sending, except WhatsApp and Telegram, of course. And it's because there's an encryption on the message. So you send hi, how are you? It's encrypted before it's sent to the other person. When it gets that the other person is decrypted. Now we use a key for the encryption and decryption. So there are two methods of encryption on the on networks. Not these ones. Is you have the symmetric key encryption and then the public key encryption. So with the symmetric key encryption, the sender and receiver use single shared key. Right? You have one key, unlock. Exactly. And you have the public key encryption. That uses two mathematically related keys, the public key and the private key. The sender encrypts the message with recipient's public key, and the recipient decrypts with private key. That's how that works. Right. So this is the public key encryption. The sender will encrypt with the public key, send a scrambled message. Then the recipient has their private key, and they use that to decrypt the scrambled message and have access to it. Now I have digital certificate, a data file used to establish the identity of users and electronic assets for protection of online transactions. Uses a trusted third party certification authority to validate the user's identity. The certification authority verifies the user's identity, stores information in a CA server, that's a certified authority server, and that generates encrypted data certificates containing owner ID information and a copy of the owner's public key. I got the digital certificate, right? Yeah. So the digital certificate is one example of a tool or technology that is used to safeguard information resources, right? So basically, you use the certificates to identify users, right? And it also protects electronic assets. There is a third party involved, and that third party validates the user's identity. Yeah. So the next one is public key infrastructure, PKI. That's the use of the public key cryptography working with certificate authority. Widely used in e-commerce. So the public key infrastructure is widely used in e-commerce. So this is an illustration of how it works. Digital certificates help establish the identity of people or electronic assets. Or a certificate. So this is a certificate, right? The internet. Request certificate. Send it. The institution or individual subject. Now the authorities over here. So the request comes to them, then they send it to the internet. Then the transaction takes place. Right, so it says that it's using what? E-commerce. Remember that. That's what's going on why. So there's also what? You can also ensure your system's availability. Right? Ensuring your system's availability. Online transaction processing requires 100% availability, no downtime. So always make sure that your system is available. Now, fault tolerant computer systems. For continuous availability, for example, stock markets, right? The stock markets have fault tolerant computers that tolerate faults, right? And they contain redundant hardware, software, and power supply components that create an environment that provides continuous, uninterrupted service, right? So the fault is, in maybe power outages and stuff. Now, We look at controlling network traffic. That's one way you can safeguard your information resources. So deep packet inspection, you know what a packet is, right? Now you examine, so that has to be examining data files and sort low priority material. So the deep packet inspection does that, the DPI. It will examine data files and sort low priority material and can block video and music downloads. Security outsourcing, that's with managed security service providers, MSSPs. So security in the cloud. Right. So you can also trust the cloud, right? So the responsibility for security resides with company owning the data. Well, this is talking about how you safeguard your information if you are using the cloud. So yeah, I said that it's your responsibility to safeguard the data that I have put away. And the firms must ensure providers provide adequate protection, right, where data are stored, meeting corporate requirements, legal privacy laws, segregation of data from other clients, right, separating, keep our data separate. Audit and security certifications, then the service level agreements, the SLAs. Now, this is how you secure your mobile phone platforms. So, security policies should include and cover any special requirements for mobile devices, guidelines for the use of platforms and applications, right? You have the mobile device management tools, authorization, inventory records, by all this, then software for segregation corporate data on devices, right? So that is it. Now you are ensuring software quality. So you have software metrics, objective assessments of a system in the form of a quantified measurements, number of transactions. So the objective assessment of a system in the form of quantified measurement. Right. So now, these are the quantified measurements that I'm talking about. So that's how the software metrics work. So we use these measurements to assess the system. Then there's the early and regular testing. There's a walkthrough, which has to do with the review of specification or design documents by small group of qualified people. You have the debugging, right? That's the process by which errors are eliminated. That's debugging, eliminating errors. Very well. So that brings us to an end. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.